Welcome back, glad to have you with us on GBGuns for another tabletop video. This one is the Century Arms VSKA, or VSKA, an American-made AK. Coming up next. So, Century Arms, who has long been an importer of AKs, and has made a couple US-made AKs, had a mixed reputation in the past. This gun is a result of a government contract. Give you a look at it. It's basic GI, if you will, AK-47 in appearance, but made to different standards. First off, this beautiful wood, which you see is American maple, which is pretty cool. And the front trunnion, the bolt carrier, and the feed ramp are all made of S7 tool steel. That is extremely tough stuff, known for being able to take shock resistance. It's the same metal that's used for jackhammer bits and things like that. Very hard metal. They made the bolt itself out of 4140 steel and the barrel out of 4150. So this thing is built pretty tough. And just looking over it, we've got essentially your general basic AK. It doesn't have the trap door on the back, but it does have some ribs on that butt plate to keep it in the shoulder. I love that maple. We do not have a scope rail mount. That doesn't bother me. Some people are bothered by it, but you know, this day and age, it's easy enough to get aftermarket stuff that goes over the gas tube or whatnot for mounting optics. Standard AK grip. It does have the Century Arms trigger pack in it. And you notice the magazine release is extended and broader. And one of the things that I noticed, if I can get this turned around without banging into my camera, is at least with my hands, I can reach forward and push that mag release without having to shift my grip. Continuing on to our controls, we can see that the safety selector has the bolt hold open notch. If you're not familiar with those, that's meant to be able to pull the bolt back, slide the safety up, and hold your bolt open. That's handy at ranges and for just general safety to be able to see that everything's clear. You can drop it to let the bolt go forward. Continuing on with that safety, we have a detent, or divot rather, dimple in the steel to keep it in place when you're down. And one of the first things that I noticed is that the safety does not overextend. That's one of the biggest pains in the butt. You know, the safety on Soviet firearms was not meant to be switched on and off like it is here in the US, both for civilian and for military applications. Soviet Union, the idea was that you either are in safe completely or you're ready to fight completely. So that's why it's not exactly the most convenient thing. But on a lot of AKs, when you come up, it'll overshoot the receiver just enough and get hung up on the receiver, and then it's a real bear to disengage. Whereas you can see this is a little more friendly. We can see our receiver stamping there. You get the light on it, Century Arms. We do have the palm swell style lower wood with the slight bumper here, and this works well for sort of angled grip. You can do the classic mag grip, but that gets hot. You can angle grip here, or you can grip a little more modern style out on the end. Our gas tube has plenty of vent holes in there. Hopefully, if the weather's right when we do our slow motion, you'll be able to see how that works. We do have a sling attachment point, standard front sight, and it comes with a standard slot brake. On another AK video, I was surprised some folks were commenting that the brake looked crooked. That's on purpose. That's the original design of the slot, or I call it the spoon brake. Problem with the AKs under high rate of fire is they tend to rise up and right. So having that base on the bottom and left side of the brake there helps push the gun down and left, and that helps mitigate quite effectively. It's astonishingly effective. Before we get inside the gun, I do want to show you the manual, which comes printed with full color photos, and it's actually pretty darn in-depth. I know some of you AK aficionados or alleged AK aficionados will say it's dumb to look through this, but you know, when I got my first AK, It was a Century, but it I bought it used, and it was an old surplus gun. Did not come with a manual, so I had to figure everything out on my own. You can see it even includes description of how to adjust the sights. Hopefully we don't need to do that. Now we'll field strip this thing and take a look inside the gun. Alright, so to field strip the AK, of course we're going to start off by showing clear. You can see there's nothing inside. You go on in the fire position. You're going to push in on this button back here. Sometimes that lip, which is there to keep it from accidentally popping off, does get in the way. This one you push in, you're going to have to lift up a little bit to get over that lip, and then our top cover comes off. It's a smooth top cover. Some like them smooth, some like them ribbed. I'll let the Beavis and Butthead guys laugh at that. So then we push forward to bring out our recoil system. You can see the spring is captured, and it's on the bendable style rod, the jointed rod, if you will. We can bring our bolt carrier straight back, and it pops out. And here is our tool steel carrier that's got some lightning cuts in it, and our 4140 steel bolt itself. The spring, or the firing pin, is not spring loaded, which is fine, that's standard. And the piston job of, so these are threaded in and then pinned. You can see that pin there, very smoothly done. Doesn't really matter, it's just kind of something that people look at for craftsmanship. This gun was obviously test fired and is very dry. I'm going to need to get some lube on there before we shoot too much, or not. Looking in our trigger pack, we can see we don't have that nasty braided wire spring. It's got a standard, or the more modern style non-braided spring. It's a dual hook trigger there. For those of you not familiar, what I'm talking about is there are two hooks here to hold on to the hammer as it comes back. Also notice that very smartly this is the semi-auto safety. That's an important thing, because if you over-rotate the safety on a full auto safety, sometimes it can bump your sear there and cause the weapon to fire. So Century was smart in going with the semi-auto way that isn't going to cause any problems there. You can see our improved feed ramp in there. Everything looks fairly cleanly assembled. This has kind of a parkerized finish on it, which is more classic. I'm not a huge fan of the parkerizing, just because it tends to kind of scratch. But in fact, you can see here the top cover is worn on it some. But you know, it's classic, and this is the least expensive of the AKs that Century has, and it's American made, so I'm cool with that. Reassembly, we're going to want to make sure that our bolt is lined up in our carrier. Push it all the way flush, because the tail end of the bolt here will get in the way. Get the piston in the gas tube, bring it forward some, and here in the back is where the end of those rails are. Push down, because you're fighting against the hammer spring, and then it goes in. We can reinsert our recoil assembly. Come on. There we go. And then the top cover, this can sometimes be tricky, sometimes easy, depends on how many times the gun's been disassembled and reassembled. I've found on newer guns it's easiest to hook the back first, line everything up with that little gap in there, and then push forward into the slot and smack it down. Now we're good to go. Quick function check. Fires. In fact, let me show you that trigger. So we've got our take up. Kind of a wall, but it's a really soft one. AKs are not quite a dual stage. Fire. There's our reset, definitely very positive. We have a little bit of pre-travel again before it fires. Should be able to do some quick shots with this. We'll have to see when it comes time for the slow-mo. Now, those of you who have watched some of the slow-mo footage, my camera's capable of doing that frame rate for only 2 seconds. So considering the reaction time it takes to push, record, and all of that, because it buffers, it films in reverse, I have less than 2 seconds to get all those shots off to try to show you the cycling action. The VSKA comes with one of the Magpul Mags. This does not appear to be the metal reinforced kind. Show you fit. That's the first time I've ever done that upside down with my right hand. Locks in very solid. I've got no wiggle. Maybe a little tiny bit front to rear. Nothing side to side. That's a very snug fit. When we get this out to the range, we'll run a variety of mags through it and show you how well they fit, and then run a few rounds to see how they feed, since there is a huge variety of magazines out there. This having been originally designed for a government contract, I'm curious to see what magazines will run in it and what won't. But that is the VSKA Tabletop, and next we'll get it out to the range and see you there. Thanks for watching.